Welcome to the IHEARTADDICTS podcast, where we dive deep into the raw, real, and transformative stories of addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Katie, and this show is brought to you by Roman Resource Project, dedicated to breaking stigmas, providing resources, and empowering those with addiction and recovery stories. Whether you're in recovery yourself, or love someone who is, or just wants to find out more about the world of addiction and healing, this is the space for you. Let's walk together one episode at a time, as recovery isn't just one story, it's a revolution. Welcome everybody to a first episode of IHEARTADDICTS. Today we have a special guest, my wife, Brooke.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for being my first one.
Stoked to be on this. Let's go.
All right, so before we really get into it, I want to talk a little bit about you first. What was like your exposure to like the drug and addiction world, like growing up, like your childhood? What did that look like for you?
I'd say growing up, it was there. It was there. I had an uncle that was in and out of prison, did a lot of drugs. My stepdad kind of raised us around a biker gang, so there was a lot of exposure there, being at parties and stuff like that. My mom never really hid it from us and just kind of taught us from a young age that this is what it is, and you're either going to do it or you're not. And this is the life that you'll live if you end up doing it. So we definitely weren't hidden from the fact that drug use was there. And she used it more as like a lesson for us as kids that, you know, it's there and people do it. And these are the results of living that life.
Awesome. Give me a little like background on what like your usage looked like. When did that start? And,
I would say it probably started about middle school for me. Probably 8th grade was like that turning point for me. As a kid, you know, we were getting older, and you start getting exposed to like marijuana, and then, you know, living at where I lived out in Hemet, it was just kind of there. It was on the streets.
if you know, you know.
Shout out to Hemet. But out in Hemet, I mean, there's, you know, tweakers walking up and down the street, and, you know, some of my friends, their parents, you know, were users themselves, and it just kind of was there. I'd say, you know, before really drugs came about, I found out about Freon, and that was kind of like the beginning.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're the first person I've ever heard do this.
I mean, we smoked a little weed here and there, and I went to a cousin's house over the weekend, over summer break, and 2 cousins decided to show me what Freon was, and I took it back to Hemet, and I showed all of my friends, and that was kind of our thing. And then it wasn't until I got caught doing that stuff that I went to rehab. My parents sent me to a rehab, and I found out about everything else.
So rehab was your really like open.
Rehab was where I figured out where everything else was. Sitting in those classes with people, and they're talking about the things they've done and the lifestyles that they lived and the stuff that they were, you know, surrounded by. And it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy, you know, like I never even heard about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until high school came around, once I hit high school, that was kind of the thing. You know, ecstasy was huge. Ecstasy was a big thing in high school for us. And, you know, we did ecstasy. We did a lot of ecstasy. And inside ecstasy, I mean, we all know that there's all sorts of different drugs in it. You know, there's heroin in some, there's cocaine in others, there's speed, there's meth. And that kind of was another gateway into the drug, you know, world for us as kids. And then, you know, cocaine was huge.
Yeah.
You know, me being a small person, I found that I couldn't drink as much, and if I did cocaine, I could drink as much.
Yeah.
I could do a whole lot of cocaine, and I can drink a whole lot of beer, and I could stay up with the big dogs and you know, do that whole thing. And then, you know, just as being kids, not really being able to get our hands on everything that we wanted to get our hands on, you know, everybody kind of went into their parents' medicine cabinets, and that's where we found, everything else. That's where we found, the Norcos. That's where we found Vicodin. That's where, we started messing around with all these different pills, and it was just kind of, as teenagers, whatever you could get your hands on, that's what you did. And I was that kid that by the time I hit high school, it was like, if you put it in my hand, I'm gonna put it in my mouth, and we're going for a wild ride. Like, give me a blue, give me a red, I don't care.
It's gonna be a fun day.
I'm gonna figure it out. If I'm dying in the middle of a field, eventually my friends will carry me home. And I'll wake up the next day and we'll figure it out again.
Yeah, I feel like most of us have been dead in the middle of a field somewhere.
Yeah. Sorry, Mom. You thought I was overstaying that at a friend's house, but I was definitely dying in a field
in the middle
somewhere.
of a field. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Moving into like really like the meat and bones of what we're here to talk about, where in the timeline of like your usage did you meet me?
I was kind of like a roller coaster. I was up, I was down on, using, and, I would go on like little bends where I'd go up and I'd party and I'd drink and I'd do a bunch of shit, and then I'd go back down and I'd kind of settle out and I'd be okay for a little while, and then I'd meet another group of friends and new friends. And so I'd say, I was kind of at the end of, coming down from a peak. I had just started, going to school. When I was in school, I met a buddy, and he was an Adderall addict. He took Adderall like crazy. He would wake up in the morning before his alarm would go off, and he'd have an alarm for Adderall, and he'd pop the Adderall, and he'd go back to sleep. He'd have an alarm for Adderall, and he would wake up, and because it was hard for him to get up anyways, he'd kind of roll over and pop an Adderall, and he'd go back to sleep, and the Adderall would wake him up, and he would go to school. And I ended up being really, really good friends. Didn't even really like the guy in the beginning, but then I ended up, we found friendship in doing drugs, and I did a lot of cocaine here and there. And so I kind of buddied up with him, and I started partying while I was in school, still trying to juggle doing school, still trying to hang out with these, new friends of mine, and going out to the bars and drinking and partying. And, I woke up one day shortly before I met you, and we had done an all-night bender. It was like a Tuesday night. We went to like the VFW because he was in the military, and so we were able to get into the VFW. And we were up all night long, all morning, doing a bunch of cocaine. And I went to school the next day, and I remember sitting in a class, and I couldn't even write. It was so hard to write. I was so shaky, and I just couldn't get my hand still. And that was kind of that point for me where it was like, okay, I'm either going to mellow out, try to figure this out, or I'm not going to get through this schooling. I'm not going to, graduate college, and I'm going to screw up this bigger opportunity that I have. So, I mean, at the time that I met you, I would say that I was still there, but at the same time, like, I knew better, and I knew that this was I'm either going to take this path and run with it, or I'm going to kind of fix myself and try to chill the fuck out. Yeah. Because I'm either 0 to 60 or I'm 0. I was either or.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It was one of those things. When I met you, it was like, I can either run with this girl right now and we're going to do some crazy shit, and I'm going to get in a lot of trouble, and I'm going to get kicked out of school, and we're just, going to do this together, or I'm going to try to like chill myself out. It wasn't, in the beginning, it really wasn't me focusing on you so much as it was me focusing on me and what I was going to do with myself. So,
yeah. And then here I came.
And then here you came. Crazy girl that would text me for a couple days straight and ghost me for a week straight, and
you're
disappear
a trooper
for 2 weeks on end, and then hit me up again. And I was infatuated with it, and I loved toxicity, and
we all love toxicity.
Like my mom says, I was always a fixer. I always, I always seen the girl down in the dumps, and that was my thing, was to try to fix them. And even though I was, fucked up myself, I always kind of Captain Save-A-Ho.
Captain Save-A-Ho, that's funny. Okay. Was there a certain point when the party had completely ended for you, but you realized that it wasn't ending for me?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, um, it was that one night with Rachel that was kind of like insane. I mean, we could have died.
Yeah.
It was that one night that we were together and we ended up, I met Rachel for the first time, and that was your bestie. And we went out to, find some shit, and she was already kind of, doing her own thing, and it was raining, and we almost crashed on the freeway. We spun out, and it was insane. We almost went over the bridge.
Yeah, it was actually like
I
really
remember that very
traumatizing.
thoroughly. And then that night I had done something that I had never done before. And I woke up the
Yeah.
next day. I was supposed to wake up early in the morning. I was driving out to Temecula to go work. And I woke up and I was sicker than shit. I was throwing up. I was shaking. Um, and it was crazy. And I looked over and you guys were still going in on it. And it was like, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't
Yeah.
want to do this. If I do that with them because that's making them feel better right now and it's making them not sick, if I do that, then this is it. This is it for me, And so I rode out that sickness and I puked my brains out. And I remember in the bathroom with Rachel, she was puking in the toilet and I'm puking in
Yeah.
the sink and just shaky. And I felt like death, absolute death.
Yeah.
And it was something that I had never done before in my whole entire life. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I had done the drug before, but I had never done it in the way that I had done it. And that was kind of one of those big, like, moments for me that
Yeah.
it was like, you really just did that last night. And I was ashamed. I felt like if anybody had any of my friends or family would ever know me to be that person and to do something that I just did, like, everybody would just be ashamed of me. And I was just appalled with myself, calling into work, even though at that point in time, I really didn't give a shit about calling into work.
Yeah.
I always called in. I really didn't care.
Yeah.
But just sitting on the phone and my voice was shaking. And it was just kind of one of those things where it was like, I cannot do this. I can't
Yeah.
hang around this girl anymore.
Yeah.
Her friend is just wild.
Wild.
She
Yeah,
was
that's a good way to put
insane.
it.
She was crazy. She was balls out. And I can't do this. I cannot do this. Like, this is bad news, And so
Mhm.
I think that was one of the turning points for me, that was like, okay, you're going back down this path and now you're here. And it's like, you need to go. You need to get up. You need to get out. You need to get the fuck away from this situation, And I still hung around a little bit, but it was one of those things where it's like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do that. I'm not
But
gonna
you didn't.
not gonna ruin my life like that, because that night I had, in my mind, it was like, you're ruining your life. What
Yeah.
I had done that night was just crazy. It was just crazy,
Yeah.
scary.
How did my addiction change your using?
Um, it definitely, it altered it a lot, especially that night too, because it was like looking at you and watching you and was like, dude, this chick is insane, like, she's gonna kill herself, and I don't want to be a part of this. And it was just kind of one of those things that was, I sat back and just kind of like looked at you and looked at your friends and looked at the house you were living in and the people that you surrounded yourself with, and it was like, dude, this is bad news, and it was like,
Well,
I'm here because I would always look at, no offense to you,
no.
because you're an amazing person, but the people that you hung around at that point in time were just trash.
Yeah.
And me, I had always, I have a big ego, and I've always looked at people like that. And if you just kind of, it's fucked up to say, because now, coming a long ways, like, I don't look at them like that anymore, but I would look at those people and just be like, you guys are fucking trash.
Yeah.
You guys are bottom of the totem pole. I hold myself to a higher standard. I'm a clean drug user. I party with the rich kids or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I sat there for a second. I'm looking around and I'm in this house and everybody's doing drugs. And it's like, I'm that person right now. Like,
Brother.
I'm that dirty ghetto kid right
Yeah,
now. Like,
no, for
sitting
sure.
around this house, passing around a fucking plate of cocaine and wondering how we're gonna get the next fucking 8 ball.
Right.
So for me, it was like, you totally altered my judgment on it. I was kind of like the you know, I dabble. In my mind, you know, I dabbled. You know, I'd go, you know, down the bottom, and then I'd hit up, and I'd stop, and
Yeah.
I'd chill out, you know, and I'd drink, and that was fine. But, you know, and cocaine in my mind was like, okay, I go to parties, I'll do some cocaine, and on the weekdays I'm fine, you know. Sometimes it would bleed into the weekdays for me, but if I'm in my room alone, I'm fine, you know. But to sit back and watch you and all your friends, it was like, dude, like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
I don't
totally
want to,
different
I don't
life.
want to be like her, you know,
Yeah.
like, my mom told me to stay away from people like you. She
did.
She warned me to stay away from you.
Even
and
when
it
I
was
came
like,
around, she warned you.
yeah, and it was like, I
which
still
totally like segues me into my next question. How did my addiction affect your relationships with people around you?
That's a big one.
I know.
You know, that's a big question.
I know.
The first couple times that I brought you around, you were an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
And my mom told people you were a shit show. And, you know, for people that know my dad Carmine, you know, he will tell everybody what my mom says, and that family, you know, if it goes in one ear and out that one
everybody
mouth,
knows.
If one person knows in that
within
family,
5 minutes,
everybody knows in that family.
I was screwed from the beginning, guys.
This is who this girl is. And so it went around, you know, and at that point in time, I was hanging around a lot with my cousins. And even when you weren't around, you know, it was kind of like you weren't dependent on me, but you were dependent on me when you were fucked up. And so being around my cousins and stuff, and I was hanging out and partying with them a lot, my phone was constantly getting blown up by this drunk chick. You know, and even though I thought she was the hottest thing in the world, like, my cousins were like, dude, what is wrong with you? And so in the family, everybody thought, like, this girl Katiee is like, she's a fucking drunk, like, she's a shit show, dude, like, what are you doing, like, hanging around this girl? Like, why are you giving her your time? Like, you're better than that, like, what's wrong with you? And, you know, as much as people said that to me, at the same time, like, I always seen something more, you know, no matter what. You know, at the end of the night, you know, leaving at my house at 1 o'clock in the morning from Temecula and driving out to San Diego, and you're passed out drunk, and just looking at you, like, I just always seen like some sort of innocence in you, where it was like, dude, like, I need to, like, help this girl, you know, because she's gonna die, she's gonna kill herself, and I'm crossing paths with her, and to walk away and find out, you know, a month or so, a week or so later on down the line, that this girl is dead, like, I'm going to be, like, devastated about this, that, like, I could have helped her. So, you know, for my family, that everybody warned me against you, and I was just resilient in the fact that, like, this is the girl that I want to be with, you know. And
so you would say that, like, you knew that you wanted to be with me long term, even like in the beginning with my addiction going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The first night that I met you, you know, I drove out to San Diego, and I walked into this house, and you're sitting on the couch, and at that point in time, I didn't know you were really blacked out drunk, you know, because I didn't know who you were. But sitting there hanging out with you and stuff, I kind of looked at you and was like, wow, it was like, I love this girl. Like, she's awesome, you know, like, this is a cool chick, you know, and I seen something in you that it was, you know, in the beginning, it was like infatuation with you. It was like, wow, like, this girl can really be something, you know, like, I want this girl to be something in my life. You know, I seen something that you weren't, and I wanted you to be that, but I seen through everything else. And so when my mom would beg me not to drive out there at, like, you know, midnight, or my cousins and aunts and uncles would be like, dude, what are you doing? You know, it was just kind of like, well, I don't really give a shit what you have to say. This is what I'm doing, and I don't really care what you guys have to say about it. Like, I'm going to bring her around. I'm going to, you know, she may embarrass me at a family outing or whatever it may be, but, you know, I love her, and I'm here to help her. And this is just what it is. You guys are either going to accept me and accept what comes with me, or, you know, it is what it is.
She's a ride or die. Ride or die.
It is what it is.
So, do you ever remember, because I don't, like, I personally don't, like, I remember snippets here and there, and I'd, like, get, like, super fucked up. But, like, do you personally remember, like, a specific time of, like, telling me or confronting me about, like, specifically drinking? So, like, let's, like, move forward a little bit. Like, I had been, like, clean. I wasn't using drugs for a while, but, like, I was a full-blown fucking blackout alcoholic. Like, daily blackout alcoholic. Do you remember a time, like, specifically, like, sitting me down and being like, look, dude, like, you have to fucking stop?
No.
Why?
No. Because in my mind, you were always free to make your own choices. I mean, up until this day, you're always free to make your own choices. And who am I to tell you how to live your life? I would say little things here and there, like, this is ridiculous. Like, you fucking embarrassed me last night, or on the drive home, I'd kind of look at you and shake my head and be like, this fucking chick, dude, like, what is going on? Like, why am I in this situation with her? Why am I continuously doing this? Like, why am I taking her out with me when I know, like, within the first 10, 15 minutes, she's going to be doing all these shots and she's going to get blacked out and everybody's going to be looking at me like, oh, you're a fucking drunk chick over here,
Yeah.
But I don't think that I ever really sat down and was like, look, this isn't going to work if you don't quit drinking. Like, you need to quit drinking. It was kind of one of those things that it was like, she's either going to figure it out for herself or she's just going to kind of, do her own thing. So I don't think that I ever really sat down and looked at you and said, hey, let's have a talk. It was more of like, this is your life and you're either going to figure it out or we're just not going to work out. I don't think that there was ever really like a warning. It was like, you need to figure out your shit out or I'm leaving. Because I don't think that I ever really had it in my brain that was like, I'm going to leave. It was more of just kind of like, it would have just, like I told you, the other day, it was just one of those things that it was like, never really thought I was going to leave you, but it would have just became one of those situations where like you were just going to kind of do your own thing and I would have slowly just kind of
we would have just been roommates.
And it just would have been one of those things where I would go off and do my own thing and I would live my own life and you can just be that drunken girl at home and you're going to get left behind in the dust while I go out and do my own thing because I'm not going to bring you around to embarrass me every time we go out and, you end up, drunk and passed out in the backyard or falling in the kitchen or whatever.
I think
wrestling
it's really...
with people and, it's just, I don't think that I ever really sat down with you and said, this is it. You either fix your life or I'm gone. It was kind of just, I loved you. And it was like, I really hope that she figures this out. I really hope that she can figure this out because this is just going to kind of become stagnant and we're just going to dwindle away and eventually it will end. Eventually it would have ended. But I don't think I ever really sat down and said that to you.
Do you think like you should have? Like, do you regret not? Do you think it was the right decision to not? Like,
I don't think I have any regrets about, what went down. Being at where we're at today, it's like, I don't think that I ever would sit back and be like, man, I regret not sitting there and talking to her because you figured it out. You figured it out for yourself. You woke up that one day and decided that you weren't going to do it anymore. And, I'm always here to support you in whatever it was that you were doing. I'm always going to be there to kind of pick you up and walk you to the car or, me and Gabriel take you out of the car and drag you into the house. So no, I don't think that I really have any regrets about how our past went down because, we're able to sit back and laugh about it now and
we're able to have a podcast about it.
I think that it grew our bond a lot more too, is that we have a past. We have a crazy past, it's crazy to say that, we're going to almost be married for 5 years.
5 years.
We've been together for like, 6.5 years or whatever it may be. But I mean, we've had a crazy past.
Definitely.
Between what we've gone through and what has happened in our family since we met, it's just, we have like a crazy story. So I don't think I regret anything that went down. I don't think I regret not talking to you about it. You figure your own shit out. This is what it is, man. Like, we fucking made it.
We fucking made it.
We made it.
Do you ever remember a time where you were like, she's just never going to stop. Like, this is never going to end?
For me, it was kind of like, every time we would go out, it was just one of those things.
Yeah.
Like, she's just never going to stop. It is what it is. I'd be driving home and you'd you passed out, or you're turning up the music, blaring the music at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sitting there trying to drive, and you're smoking your cigarette and dropping your cigarette in my truck. And it was just kind of one of those things. I'd look at you and be like, oh man, she's never gonna fucking stop. Like, this is just gonna be like her life, you know. Like, I don't see any way she's ever gonna wake up one day and say, I don't want to drink, you know. It was because you were just so in the deep end with it. It was like, you know, you'd wake up and fucking search for that bottle. And even if I'd refuse to go and buy it, you know, I'd come home and you had one. It was like, where the fuck did you get that from?
Yeah.
You found a way.
An addict will always find a way.
And she did all the time, you know.
I don't give a fuck.
And I don't really care to know how she got it. I really don't. But, you know, you found a way, and it was like, even if I was to tell you, no, stop, don't do it, it didn't matter what I was going to say. Even if I had sat down and threatened you, I feel like if I had sat down and been like, I'm going to leave, it would have gave you more fuel just to continue to drink. So it was never one of those things where I wanted to fight about the situation. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I would sit back and kind of look at you sometimes and be like, fuck me, like, this is what it is, you know. She's a drunk, like, she's an alcoholic, and this is just kind of my life, I guess.
I want to like ask you like a like kind of personal question. So like your dad that like raised you, Carmine, was an alcoholic for a really long time.
Yes.
How did it feel to like be in so much love with someone that was an alcoholic when you had just come from like the dad that was the alcoholic?
I'm a lot like my mom. I mean, you know,
yeah.
I am so much a mirror of my mother. So I kind of feel like, you know, even though I was young, it was almost one of those things that it was like, I'm just kind of comfortable in this situation, because I was always around it as a kid. And it was just kind of like, you know, it just kind of is what it was, you know. So I grew up around it, and I knew what alcoholism was. And, you know, my dad was an alcoholic for years. I mean, it you know, destroyed our family, and, you know, I love him to death now, and he's a great guy now. And
yeah,
but back then it was like, it was, you
shout
know,
out Carmine.
it was, you know, shout out to you, Dad, I love you very much.
Shout out Carmine.
You know, we had a lot of childhood trauma from what had happened. I mean, especially me, being the age that I was around the time that he had, you know, went balls deep into it, and it just kind of ruined the whole family. It was almost like I was just kind of like living my mom's life, you know. It was like, you know, this is what my mom did, and this is what I'm doing. And, you know, I was Captain Save-A-Ho. It was just one of those things that I,
glutton for punishment.
It was.
Do you think to like a certain degree, like that was normal for you?
It felt normal, you know. It didn't.
Yeah, because like anybody else, and like even like you said, like your cousins, everybody else, they were like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right, right. But I mean, you know, we all partied, we all drank, and we all, you know, when we drank to get fucked up and have a good fucking time. You just drank a little bit more than everybody else.
Yeah.
And eventually, it just wouldn't be a good time for you. You know?
I love the quote though, like, and I think this relates to me a lot. Is like, yeah, like we all did party, and like that's great and all, but like it's only a party if the party ends. And like,
and for you, the party didn't end.
Yeah.
I mean, even after that drive home, you would still want to. I mean, the minute we'd get in the car, you'd have two roadies with you, and it was like, I still want to stop off, and I still want to get more alcohol. And then you'd get home, and then it was a big fight, because it was like, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning now. Yeah. I'm ready to go to bed, and you're over here just like, I need to get more, da da da. Like, and it was like, dude, first off, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Like,
I'm sober.
I'm sober. You know, I had to be sober all night and watch you get all shitty.
Yeah.
And you still want to go, and you were just, you know, it was crazy how much energy you had for being an alcoholic. But then it was like, once you like chilled out and, you know, laid down, you were out. But if it wasn't for you chilling out and closing your eyes for that second, you would have been able to still go for hours. It was crazy how much energy you had as an alcoholic. You just wanted to drink and drink and drink and drink.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it was just kind of like a normality, you know. It was just normal for me.
Yeah.
So,
childhood trauma.
Yeah, childhood trauma.
Okay, this is kind of a heavy one too. So, what did you personally like give into like morally or stuff like that, like wise with me to like make your life easier?
I didn't fight it. I never really fought it. It was kind
Yeah.
of one of those things that was like, is it really worth the argument? No,
Mhm.
because I'm not going to win, you know?
Okay, so yeah, that's
So,
what
I mean,
like
for me, I was so like in my head about the whole situation. And I mean, there was so many times that I did want to like freak out on you or tell you off and tell you that you're a piece of shit. But at the same time, it was like, what is it going to do? You know,
yeah.
I'm not going to win anyways, you know? Morally, you know, it was just kind of one of those things like, it was embarrassing, but at the same time, it was like, it is what it is, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just over here embarrassing myself, you know? But I loved this girl, and it was just kind of, you know, when it was good, it was really good, and when it was bad, it fucking sucked.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like it, you know? It was just,
I think
I just didn't want
that's
to
a big one
argue.
though, is that like, like personally for me, like when you would challenge my drinking, like it literally would make me want to drink
Right.
more.
And I understood that in
Yeah.
from the get,
Yeah.
from the beginning. Like, you don't challenge this girl, because it was like when we would be out at parties or, you know, family get-togethers or whatever, and I would start to see that glaze in your eye, and I would tell you, like, that's enough. Like, you need to chill. Like, you're getting a little too fucked up. Then next thing you know, you're sneaking around doing it. It was like, okay, well, I'd rather her do it in front of my face to watch how
Yeah.
much she is consuming than you disappear throughout the party and you're, you know, sneaking drinks in the kitchen, taking shots in the corner or whatever it may be. So for me, it was like, it was easier not to argue with you about it, because then you would go even further with the situation. It was just better to just kind of, you know, have a good time with
Let
you
it be
and
like the
just
normal drunk.
monitor you as
Yeah.
you drank, and you wouldn't, you know, take it as a challenge, that it was like, all right, well, you're having a problem with how I'm acting right now,
Yeah.
watch this.
Yeah, because that's totally what it
Because the
was.
watch this moments sucked.
Yeah.
They sucked.
Yeah.
You know, it was that much more embarrassing.
Oh,
You
for
know, everybody
sure.
was drunk and everybody was having a good time, and maybe some people would have remembered how drunk Katiee was the night before. But if it was those challenged moments that was like, watch this, then it was like, oh great, now I'm going to be the talk of the family. You know, everybody's going to call everyone and be like, hey, did you see how fucked up Katiee got last night? Da, da, da,
Yeah,
da.
like
And it was like,
everyone didn't see like me like not being able to function and
oh, you're the
like
party. Like,
yeah.
everybody's so surprised when, now that you don't drink, because like you were the funnest part of the party. Like,
Yeah.
you were like the big dog, and you outdrank everybody. And so it was fun to party with you, and
Yeah.
everybody loved drinking with you and having a great time. And so, you know, the next day they wouldn't remember how fucked up I remembered you getting.
Yeah.
But those watch this moments where you were way too over your head was the moments that they were kind of like, you know, I knew people were calling other people, hey, you see how fucked up Katiee got last night? And then next thing you know, my mom or my dad's calling me like, hey, I heard Katiee got really fucked up last night and ate shit in the backyard and scraped up her knee or whatever it was. It was like, great, now my whole family's going to hear about this, you know, and everybody knows my family. If one person knows it, everybody else knows it.
Everybody knows
Good old family. Love you guys.
it. Love y'all.
Love y'all.
What kind of boundaries do you think you lacked during that time?
I think I lacked my own boundaries, my own structure. I always like to be in control of myself, situations, and with you, I was totally out of control. You know, I wasn't in control of my situation. I wasn't in control of your situation, which was insane for me. So for me, there was no boundaries, and that was kind of chaotic for me.
Yeah.
You know, I lacked every boundary because you broke all the boundaries with me. But like I said before, you know, I feel like that built such a better relationship for us now because we learned our boundaries together.
Yeah,
We were able
totally.
to build our own boundaries with each other and how
Totally.
we are now. But before, it was like you just kind of wiped away all my boundaries and took away all my power, and I was completely powerless to anything that was happening.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, for me, was kind of something that I probably had to go through too, because, you know, in my past, you know, I was a very big control freak, and, you know, I'm a borderline narcissist.
Borderline. I'm just
and
kidding.
so I feel like that kind of broke me down, you know, to the stub. and I was able to kind of rebuild myself, and we were able to rebuild boundaries with each other in this great relationship.
Yeah.
Because if not, it would have been just me controlling the situation. And, in my past, I've, knowing our relationship now, it would have never worked with us. My controlling ways and the way that, I was such an asshole, back in the day, and I just was such a narcissist. It was like, it would have never worked with us. So I needed to be kind of broken down and built back up with us together as one, to be able to have our boundaries now. But I'd say back then, there was
None.
no boundaries.
The lack of boundaries was
Katie
the
hopped
no
those
boundaries.
fences 100%.
Boundary who?
Yeah, what boundaries?
No, yeah,
Get
but
home safe.
I
That
like
was a
definitely
boundary.
yeah. I have to definitely agree with you though. Like we did, and it's really interesting to me that you look at it as that was something that you needed to.
Oh
And
yeah,
the only
absolutely.
reason why, obviously we all know like things all happen for a reason. Like we would only be where we are today if we went
100%.
through what we went through. But like for you to see it like that is very interesting.
Right.
You weren't the addict in this situation.
No.
You weren't the one that had to go through getting clean and sober and blah, 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 blah. But you were the one that had to like support me in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to be like, like I needed to be broken down to be able to build healthy like relational boundaries
Right.
with her. Like that's super fucking cool,
Yeah.
like that's a really cool way to look at it. Do you think you've always looked at it that way, or do you think that it's taken time for you to like step back and like really have this sober life with me that like you actually appreciate like everything that happened?
Oh yeah, I mean, and then around then I did not appreciate anything that was happening.
Right.
It's not until now that it's like I'm able to sit back and be like, wow, that was a wild ride. But if it wasn't for us going through all of that together, we wouldn't be where we're at today.
No, yeah.
We wouldn't have the boundaries that we have together today. We wouldn't have the relationship that we have now if it wasn't for all the bullshit that we went through back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. Like I said, I needed to be pushed off of that pedestal of me being this like cocky, big-headed, like what I says go, mini macho, egotistical. I was an asshole, and I definitely needed to be knocked off of my rocker and built back up from the ground up, because I mean it's taught me how to be more calm. It's taught me to be more understanding about situations. Patience is a huge thing. I had no patience. I had no calm. I had no chill, and it was like, I was an asshole. I was
for sure, yeah.
asshole back in the day. I was so cocky. I thought it was the coolest fucking thing that walked on the earth.
You are the coolest thing.
I'm still pretty cocky, but it just relationship wise, I had to learn that you cannot control this person to be what you want them to be. Whether you have this image or not, you cannot control that person to be what you want them to be, because they're going to do what they want to do. And I learned how to just be patient and let you do what you had to do to figure out what you wanted to be. And it worked out.
Yeah.
You figured it out, and you figured out who you wanted to be and how you wanted to live your life and what you wanted to stand for in life. And it wasn't to be this drunken fucking mess that just like, blew a storm through the party and,
left.
So,
yeah. Was there ever like a specific time that you remember like, okay, she's like really quitting. Like this is really done. This is really going to end. Like, did you see, like, when was that for you?
I would say it was probably not that first time when around that 4th of July.
Yeah, because I did a dry July.
Break. Yeah, you did the dry July. And then you started drinking again. But it was kind of one of those things where it was like, okay, maybe she's like actually gonna like, I hope she feels great, not drinking and doesn't want to do it again. And then you started drinking again a little bit, but it was kind of like I would see you like doing this taper down. And I was like, okay, I think we're getting close. Like, I didn't think you would ever 100% get sober, but I thought like she's figuring it out. Like she's going to figure out how to like go and like be able to like have that 1 or 2 drinks and come home. I mean, we figured out that you couldn't figure that out. It's just not something that you were capable of, was
alcoholic modification.
Yeah, you couldn't modify that.
Yeah.
And me, as I thought that I always thought that I was the type of person that can go and have one beer and be able to leave. And I could go and have the one beer, but I couldn't have more than one, because if I went on two, I'd probably have the three. And if I went on three, then that was it for me.
Yeah.
But I was thinking like, okay, I think she's starting to try to figure this out. And then that one day you came and you're like, I think I'm going to quit, and was kind of like, okay, sure. Let's do another dry July or whatever it was. And then it just kept going further and further. And then, you hit, it was like 3 months or something like that. And you're like, I think this is it. It was kind of like, wow, okay, let's go. And our relationship started to kind of mend itself and get so much better that I think even you started to realize, like, our relationship is starting to get so much better. Like, we were communicating more, I seemed happier. You seemed happier. I was more mentally there.
Honestly, like I don't like to say this out loud because this is so like knock on wood moment, but like life got easier.
Yeah.
Like life, like I didn't really.
Our relationship got so much easier.
Yeah, and I feel like I didn't notice how hard we were fighting for it to stay alive until like all that shit like cleared away, and then I was like, fuck, like it's taken a lot to get to this point, and like yeah, we had to go through all that bullshit, but like we would not be in a relationship we are now if like all that didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think like, I loved you to death, and I still love you more than anything in this world. But throughout all that we have been through, there was always like that voice in the back of my head that was like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you like doing this with this chick? Like, do you even want to be in this relationship? Like, is this really something you want to be? And towards the end of, your drinking and stuff, I was really starting to contemplate, like, if this was something that I was really even down for. Even after, we got married, like, you were still drinking, and I married this girl, and in my head, it was kind of like a constant battle with myself. It was like, do you really love her? And it was like, yes, I do. Like, I'd have to fight myself. Like, you love her. You want to be in this relationship.
You have to like talk yourself into it.
And it was like almost every day I'd have to wake up and talk myself into this relationship and convince myself that like this was what I wanted. Even though standing in my bodily form and watching you, it was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, I was so ready towards the end of you drinking to give up, because it was almost like for you, it was like that roller coaster. Like, you would kind of start, weaning off a little bit, and you get a little bit better, and you were able to go out and like have those 5 beers and come home, and I was like so proud. But the next thing you know, it was like you'd start going back up that hill again, and then you were fucking shit-faced drunk again. It was like, dude, okay, like, I thought you had this. So for me, it was so like,
you were on the roller coaster too.
It was so mentally like beaten down. Like every time, it was like I was getting kicked more and more in my stomach, and it was like I was bruised and broken. It was like, and I was starting to question myself, and then I'm like constantly like, at work, like we're arguing over the phone because of whatever had happened the night before, and I'm like totally distracted in what's going on, and just started my new career, and it was like sitting there thinking to myself, like, why am I doing this with myself? Like, why are you constantly convincing yourself to like be okay with the situation that you're in? And it was like, it was like that angel and devil, like one side saying like, get the fuck out. The other side of me is like, no, you love her. Like, keep fighting for this. And it was starting that back away, like get out, was starting to win more, so it wasn't until you actually was like, wow, she's really not going to be drinking anymore. It was kind of like, okay. Like, and then the more sober you got, and then when you I'd see you start focusing on yourself, and you started going to the gym, and you were doing it by yourself, it was like I started to love you so much more, because I didn't see you as like this like pity, because I always kind of like pitied you. I loved you to death, and I wanted the best for you, but it's not. At the end of the night, sometimes I'd look at you and be like, fuck, man, like, you're a piece of shit. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this to me? Like, why are you dragging me along? Even though I was totally down to go for it. But I'd look at you and just pity you and be like, why the fuck am I doing this? Why am I going for this life? And so to watch you like build yourself back up and go to the gym, and I wasn't going to the gym at the time, and you'd be like, oh, I'm going to the gym, and I'd stay home and sit there and watch TV, and you'd be gone for an hour and a half, and you'd come home, and just to see you love yourself so much more made me love you that much more. To watch your self-love made me just fall in love with you like all over again. And it was like this new girl that I was falling in love with, because I always loved you. But it was more of that thing that like, I need to save this girl. But it was like, okay, she's there. She's fucking got this shit. Like, she loves herself. And for that, like, I love her so much more. And then I just adored you. You know, it was like, you fucking go, dude. Like, you did this for yourself. You know, yeah, I'm always there to support you, but you didn't need my help. You know, you did this for yourself, and to watch you just build yourself up like that was just amazing to see. You know, and then in the beginning, like, you didn't go to AA, you didn't get help from anybody else. This was all just yourself in your own mind, with your own demons, dealing with your own addiction, and waking up every day without anybody's help or holding your hand and just saying, I'm not going to. And for me, like, that was like the self-empowerment I seen in you was just amazing. You know, I just adored that about you. It was like, wow, this girl's fucking amazing. Like, see, that's what I had seen.
You're all, see, guys, I fucking
That was
told
the glimmer
you.
past the glaze that I seen that night when I first met her. Is that there's a confident girl inside there, and she'll come out eventually. And it was like one of those things. It was like, good job for sticking around, you know, because I love our life together now. And it was like, I would have regretted leaving and watching you do this from afar and being like, fuck, man, I should have been there for that, you know. Like, look at her off living her own life in this relationship, or whoever, you know, being whatever she is today. Like, I would have totally regretted that, you know. That would have sucked to like give up on you, you know. Even though sometimes it was like one of those things, it's like, just give up, dude. Like, just give up. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because to just watch you like become who you are today was just, it's crazy. It's fucking insane.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. That was really nice of you.
Of course.
Thank you.
You did it. You did it for yourself. Nobody's help, you know.
I love our life together, and I'm really glad that, like, you know, like, obviously God like totally like paved our path for us, you know. And like, he told I mean, I totally believe our marriage is the way it's
That's another
supposed to
thing
be,
for us too, though, is like, you know, we were so like against God for the longest time. It was like, God did this to us. And we always made those, you know, satanic jokes or whatever it was. And I remember sitting there and my mom begging us, you know, you guys need to love God. And we just kind of scoffed at her.
Shout out to Tanya for,
shout out to my mom. You're a real one.
Yeah, like, you literally were there when I ate chips and salsa off the bathroom floor, and then you were also there when I am praising Jesus with you in church. That's
true. So. and I think that for us in the last few months is like even a bigger you know, milestone for us, was to actually, you know, and same thing, like you had, you know, with the gym, like you started the gym by yourself, and then eventually I wanted to follow you. You started the whole church thing by yourself, and I was kind of like, whatever, do your own thing, like go hang out with God. And then eventually, like, I started seeing that, and it was like, I started getting my own signs, you know, not from you and not from you talking me into it. It was just kind of
your own spiritual signs.
I just started seeing those signs, and God just kind of started talking to me. And it was like, you know, I was done with a career that I had, you know, started, you know, 5 years ago. And it was like, you know, I was hitting this wall, and God just kind of like started showing himself to me. And then I came to you that day and was like, okay, let's try going to church. And I think that God for us in the last few months has completely turned our lives into something so much more than what we could have done ourselves. Because I mean, even up until that point of getting back with God and taking God back into our hearts, we were trying so hard. And it was like, no matter how hard and how much we were team players with each other, to not be on the same team as God, we were going to fail regardless. Yeah. Amen. Physically, financially, mentally, whatever it may be. And to actually find God together, it has made our relationship so much better. But to follow the path that God has set forth for us, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. You know, so many great things have happened in the last couple months when we decided to like listen to God and go to church and dedicate our lives to doing what it is that God wants us to do and following the signs that he wants us to follow, instead of fighting the path that he wanted us to go down, which we had been doing for years. Even sober, you know, even us being sober and us we just wanted, we were selfish, and we wanted to do it for us, and we wanted this, and we wanted all this money, and we wanted to live this great life. And to sit back now and look at that, from the past months before, finding God again, it was like, we were never going to win.
Yeah.
We were never going to find that glory or whatever it may be. And to be, I mean, we hated where we were living. We hated our situation. And it's like, we're in the same situation. We're living in the same place, but God has blessed us with so much other things that it's like, the new career and your new life. And it's like, we're able to sit back and actually appreciate what God has done.
I think that's more what it is, right? Is that like God gave us a different outlook on our life given the same exact situation, right? Like that, I think that's really awesome that you said that.
And I mean, and it's with, the new path that God has set for us, it's not the same situation that it was.
No.
Because we're in the same, same house, and we're doing the same thing, but
right?
Mindset has completely changed it. But to actually take ourselves from here and set us on that path of like following God and what God wants us to do, it's like, okay, now we're winning. Like now we're being gifted His grace and able to,
you can feel it,
to have that gift of Him. And it's amazing.
You can feel it in our home.
Oh yeah. I mean, every day you can feel it. And every morning I thank God for the life that He's given us and the path that He opened up for us, and for Him just speaking out loud to me by myself. And it's crazy. And so shout out to God.
Shout
thank
out to
you,
God.
Lord. It's crazy.
All right, I want to end on one more question. Well, what would you tell someone who's entering a relationship like you did with someone like me?
Whew. I don't know, man. I don't know. My thing would be is like, if you're really going to get into this relationship and you really think that this person can change, be on their team 100%. Support your significant other 100%. Be calm. Have a sense of calmness with them. Be understanding in the situation. Pull yourself back from what you're looking at. Straightforward, and think about what they're going through in their own mind. I think I had to do that a lot, was to sit back and be like, just think about what she's going through right now. Like, you're having a hard time dealing with her, but what do you think is going on in her brain? But on the other hand, it's like, y'all really want to do that? And I mean, you really got to gauge that. Is this somebody that you really see yourself being with for the rest of your life? Because from the get, I seen myself being with you for the rest of my life. And so to me, like, that was the challenge. That was like, I'm taking this road, and it's going to happen, and I'm going to do this, and you're going to lose yourself, and you're going to find yourself again. And it's either going to work for you guys or it's not. It just all depends on you and your determination, and also the other person, and whether they're going to be able to see their way out of it. It's going to be, years of battles, and years of arguments, and years of unknowns, and years of not knowing if this is going to be a great outcome, or wondering if you even made the right decision. But I mean, if that's something that you feel like you're strong enough to go through, then go for it. Save that life, save that person, because it's worth it in the end, when they finally see the light through, that dark tunnel that they've been going through for however long. But for me, I mean, it was totally worth it at the end of the day. 100% worth it. I wouldn't have changed a thing about what went on. Mm-hmm. I have no regrets about, the past that we went through, and trials and tribulations that have gone on in our life. But, it's hard. It's definitely a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to go through, and it beats you up, and it brings you up, and that's totally up to you. If that's something you feel like you can conquer, then take that quest. But if you don't even care about your own self, it might not, you're going to end up, down on the ground. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
With that being said, if anybody needs help or needs any more resources of finding help, please reach out to us, DM us, and we will send you all the help that we possibly have and all the information that we have to help you or your loved one. Brooke, thank you.
Yeah. Shout out to Roman Resource Project.
That was a
Let's
great
go.
time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. High five.
I
You
love
did
you.